We often do work in a world where it's very, very short polarized statements. We all recognize that the real world is much more nuanced. What we want to do is to start from these extreme positions that we read about and see how towards the end we're kind of able to work through the nuance of these very complex issues. So as I said, this is Cafe Organic. Critics argue that organic agriculture is inefficient. It results in more land than conventional agriculture to yield the same amount of food. There's this basic argument that we talk about in A3 called the sharing versus sparing debate. Proponents have argued that increasing research would yield the yield gap, and organic agriculture would actually generate increasing research for organic. So proponents of organic argue that increasing research improves yield, can improve yield gaps and solve that problem, and it also generates environmental health health co-benefits. On the other hand, the conventional people argue that we can't feed a world of 9 billion people on just organic, particularly in the large granary part or the cereal production part of it. We do need conventional agriculture, improved yields, pesticides, fertilizers, all of those things. So we have two extremely distinguished proponents, a proponent and an opponent, who I will introduce shortly. But before that, I'd like to invite Dr. Nirmalya Chatterjee, a faculty at A3, to speak briefly a little bit about the science of organic and conventional agriculture. Nirmalya? Yeah.
Thanks, Veena. So I was told that I have to be in this one. I wanted to be on the other one as well, the Cafe Vriksha. So the basic concepts that we deal about, I am a soil scientist, so I'll talk about the soil and the land per se, which is hosting both the conventional production systems and the organic production systems. Organic production systems, by which we mean the more newer, certified, ostensibly more better returns, at least that's the narrative, that farmers are getting that better returns and it's costing more. Of course, I have my private positions of whether food should be cheap or not, and whether we need more nuance in the production system as well as in the market side of things. But food is obviously very important, so each of these systems would have their own repercussions on the in some parts of the world. The point raised by Veena that it will be difficult to feed people, both the present and the future, if they don't do organic. But that also has countered by a bunch of people from the other side, that maybe our food habits are of some reasoning behind the lack of shortage that we are seeing. So there's a lot of nuance that's out there, the food habits, the footprints that we are creating. We did talk about footprints earlier in the day today, water footprints, carbon footprints, energy footprints. So even food is one of the biggest footprints that humans have, both on the land and in the use of other resources. So I would like to say that yes, conventional has fed us, especially in India. We have had a 300 years of history of, at least during the colonial and just the pre-colonial period when we had a lot of famines. They have been talked about in historical narratives or in more in the media in the post-independence era. We have had much localized famines. We have had large-scale regional famines also in the historical period. But the issue is that we did grow from a 350 million population to a 1.4 billion population. And for the most part, yes, our nutrition levels have varied, but we have not had large mass famines and mass deaths since independence at least. So there is, of course, the challenge of feeding a variety of foods to everyone, which is somewhat missing in the conventional scheme of things, because there's only so much research and so much breeding and so much support the government can give to a variety of food stuff, and that has been missing. I mean, if you discuss that, we have only 23 crops in the minimum support price regime. Obviously, that's not just what we eat. So, on the other side, conventional, because it has intensified the use of land resources and a bunch of other resources, notably water and energy, it has had some deleterious effects in some regions of the country. Increased aridity and salinity in some parts of the country, poor water drainage conditions in shallow water table areas. But it has delivered. But now, as our population is becoming more aspirational and more aware, they are also getting aware of the problems that conventional gave rise to. Incidentally, if you look at it from a scientific perspective on analysis of food, the outcome of the production of food from an organic system and a conventional system do not differ by too much. I mean, there may be one-off cases where pesticide residues are very high, but for the most part, they are actually the same food being produced in two different production manners. So it is important that we have a middle ground, because extremism would just create a lot of tension, which we do not want in something as essential as food. We need to feed ourselves, and I'll just quote a number here. In 1951, per capita food grain production was about 310 grams per day per head. Today it is 6. This year 2021 data came out a few months back. This year it's 600. So I'll leave it there, and let's hope we can all come to the middle ground. Thank you.
So that was Nirmalya reassuring you that we are not trying to be the next Arnab Goswami. We're trying to be, so we do want to get back to the middle at the end of it. Thank you so much, Nirmalya. So I'm going to actually, before I introduce, the two participants, what I'm going to do is briefly discuss the format of the cafe. So the first, what we are going to do is have the counterpoint and counterpoint by the two proponent and opponent for organic agriculture, and each will get 5 minutes to speak, and then 5 minutes again once they've heard the other person's point. So that will be the first 20 minutes. Then we are going to give 2 minutes for people to change their positions. Now, we've asked people to kind of take their initial positions, so that is conventional on to my left. There is the neutral folks in the center, and then the pro-organic is on the right. Now, not surprisingly, this is an environmental conference, so we found that many of the respondents were pro-organic, but we're going to see how that changes through the afternoon once we've heard the speakers speak. So once we've done that, you can sit with your initial positions as you want, either what you were assigned, or if you want to change even at this point, you can pick your section. Once that is done and you've heard the two sides speak, we will play 2 minutes of music. People can shift positions, and then you get 15 minutes. So each of the groups, the pro-organic and the pro-conventional, get 15 minutes to discuss and refine their arguments based on what they've heard on the stage and based on what they thought was convincing and what additional points they wanted to bring to the table. And then what we will do is we'll allow a representative from each, the pro-conventional and the pro-organic, to come to the podium and present their points. But we'd ask you just have about a minute or so. So we are going to ask you to, a minute or two, that's all we have. So we're going to ask you to be very, very succinct and present your points in just 5 or 7 cogent points to present why you thought that that side that you're representing had validity. After that, we're going to come back we're going to come back to the stage. And we're going to allow our two cafe participants, our two cafe speakers, panelists, to make their closing arguments. And what we're going to do finally is I'm going to summarize some of the key points that arose, and we're going to poll the entire audience to shift position based on whether they agree or disagree with each of 4 or 5 statements that emerged from the discussions in the hall today. Yeah. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our two main panelists for the evening. We are very privileged to have Professor Sri Kumar, a professor at Kerala Agricultural University. He is a recipient of the Essence Global Award and has authored 35 research articles, 9 books, and many, many popular articles. And he is very passionate about public education around scientific temperament, toxicology, the endosulfan debate, and so on. And he has many YouTube videos that you're welcome to check out. He received his PhD from the Indian Agricultural Research Institute in New Delhi and completed his graduation and post-graduation from Kerala Agricultural University. Welcome, sir. Please come to the podium. Our second panelist today is Kavita Kuruganti, who is a freelance writer and researcher and has worked extensively on agriculture, food safety, food security, and food sovereignty for 30 years. As an active filmmaker and activist, she leads and convenes many agricultural food coalitions and alliances. There were too many of them to list, so I'm not going to read all of them in the interest of time. She's served on many high-level government committees, including the Ramesh Chand Committee on Minimum Support Price and the Dalwai Committee on Doubling Farmer Income. She is actively involved in drafting 2 bills for the All India Kisan Sangharsh Coordination Committee to help confer legal rights to farmers. Welcome, Kavita. So, because we said that there are many more pro-organic, today we are going to actually allow Professor Sri Kumar to start. He clearly has the harder, more uphill task for this audience. So, Professor Sri Kumar, over to you.
So, thank you very much, Etri, for inviting me for this session. I am very thankful to you all. I won't say conventional, it's scientific agriculture, I would say, or modern agriculture. So I am speaking for modern agriculture. So first of all, I am hailing from a farm family, and while studying, I read One Star Revolution of Masanobu Fukuoka, and after my graduation, I tried One Star Revolution kind of cultivation in my own farm for 2 years, and it was a failure. And after that, when I joined as agricultural officer, then I met the harsh realities of the farmers, harsh realities. When pest comes, when disease comes, when there is a nutritional disorder, what to do. So in organic, I was an environmental extremist at that time. But slowly I come to understand the harsh realities of farming as well as life. And then I started going more deep into scientific agriculture, and I could offer better solutions for the farmers. So I learned from my experience. And also, you know well that our country was going on into famines, starving deaths for millions of people in the country, if you look at the history. And when we got independence, Pandit Nehru went to different countries and begging for wheat and rice. And there was a cartoon by Cartoon Shankar stating, drawing that Nehru was signing accord with the French president before the palace. And the backyard of the palace, Nehru was with a bowed head. He was showing the gunny bag, and the other people, the president was putting grain into it, wheat into it. So by bringing wheat and rice from other countries, only we could survive. But later on, when science was infused into agriculture, when new breeding techniques were evolved, we could bring a revolution in farming. And so that we have 314 million tons of food and vegetables, fruits, and other kinds because of science infusion. And if you go into organic, there will be reduction in food production, because one of the meta-systematic study, I would say, because meta-systematic studies are the highest in the rung of the ladder of the pyramid of evidence. That is the highest one. So a systematic study by Naveen Ramankutti and Veena Sirifat states that there will be from 4% to 34% reduction in food production, in productivity. So we cannot afford to that. So, but organic can have a place in our farming. It is a fashion show. Towards fashion show, people will be attracted. And to fashion show will be attracting media and people. So that way it's okay. And also to some extent, as a niche market for high income group of people. And as a premium price, if it is fetching a premium price, it can be exported also. That way it's fine. But otherwise for the food security of the country, for nutrition security of the country, and for food safety also, this is insufficient, I would say. This is insufficient. And there is a strong fear that our vegetables and other agriculture produce are pesticide laden. It is not true. If you look at the All India Network project on pesticide residues, there are 33 centers in the country which is drawing different types of agriculture produce from the market and looking for pesticide residues. Last 10 years data you will get from the net. You will look at and see that it's only less than 3% for the past 10 years average, less than 3% only. So 97% of the produce is free. And what is this MRL, maximum residue limit? It is for trade, it is kept as a trade barrier only. If it is slightly above MRL, it is not going to hit our health, because MRL value is 1/100th of a value of a pesticide residue, which is not causing any harm to a rat. For if it is 100 times higher, even then it is not going to cause a problem for the rat for generations together. That is the MRL value. So 100 times less is taken as MRL value for a human being. So that is MRL value. MRL value is a for standardizing trade, international trade. That is. So that way, we don't have to fear about the modern farming produce, but this is warning bell or final bell? It's warning bell, I think. So there is fear about cancer. There is fear about other things like nitrate leaching. But all for this, science have a solution. We have to think critically. Always hear the other side before making a judgment. That is true in jurisprudence. That is true in science also. Always hear the other side and think critically. Think with evidence. It should be evidence-based. Then only we will have correct answer for everything. Thank you.
That was spirited, Dr. Sri Kumar. You asked the wrong question, you get the wrong answers. A3, I think, has posed this quite wrongly. It's not about food security. I think the very understanding that we have evolved in this country around food security, we've gone really, really wrong there. To think that food security is about 2 grains from certain green revolution pockets of India, which then distribute those grains all over the country, and we call ourselves food secure when we import nearly all raw materials for our chemical fertilizers from abroad, and we call ourselves self-secure when it comes to food security. I think we've gone terribly wrong on it, and I'm surprised that we are actually having these questions. To me, organic farming or agroecology is inevitable. The question is not about food security. The question is about how do we scale up agroecology? How, at what pace, where do we begin? How do we go about setting up an institutional architecture that will take agroecology to the last farmer in this country? What sort of extension mechanisms and so on? You can't begin by talking about food security in the old ways. And for anyone to be saying that organic farming has no science, pardon me for saying this, I would say you haven't caught up with what organic farming is all about. Organic farming is, I would say, post-modern science. You're stuck in modern science, sorry. Come and check what is happening with the best of organic farmers as well as the best of scientists backing organic farming, and you will realize that they are talking about cutting-edge microbiology. They're talking about soil biology, whereas you're stuck in soil chemistry. They're talking about diversity. They understand complex ecosystems, whereas, once again, pardon me for saying this, you're stuck with your monocultures in your mental models, in your mindsets. Let me talk about the fact that food security is not about 2 grains. Let me talk about the fact that food security is not about production also of a multitude of grains and various other things. In fact, I'm someone who's worked on forests as food producing habitats, for instance. We ignore that the most progressive food security discourse only includes millets, whereas we forget that forests themselves are food producing habitats, and maybe we'll be able to protect them if we enhance that discourse on forests, but that's for another day. So it's not even a production issue, but since I've got dragged into a cafe which is looking at productivity in organic farming, let me cite some numbers also. And these productivity questions, which I would call as Malthusian scaremongering, have been answered in a number of micro studies out there. In my bag there, I have a compilation. I thought I'll flash that book. I just came rushing onto the stage, of something like 350 micro studies from the NARS. It's not NGO studies. It's from the agricultural research system, ICAR bodies. Sitting in GK, VK, I culled out such studies and we printed that. And in my bag is this book that Center for Science and Environment has come out with. Strangely enough, you cited the All India Network project on pesticide residues. I can show you n number of independent studies on pesticide residues which are contradictory to what AINP finds out year after year. But I want to cite AINP on organic farming, which is a ICAR project, which shows that out of the 504 times that yield results were recorded, in 41% of times, organic farming had the highest yields, followed by the so-called integrated nutrient management. If any of you think that neutral is the way to go, some organic, some chemical and so on, organic outperformed INM in this large 15-year study. And the results are clearly showing that organic is good for productivity, highest productivity across the most number of crops. Out of mean yields recorded in 31 crops, in 27 crops, yields are higher than organic, and in most cases more than 20%, ICAR results. Go to Andhra Pradesh Community Natural Farming Project. Their results are up on the website. 2,000 farmers, third-party commission studies. Every year there's a comparison between conventional and organic. You see whether organic and natural farming is outperforming or not. I rest my case. Thanks.
Thank you, Kavita. Regarding All India Network project on organic farming, I read the entire report, and it's found that it is comparing with the farmers' practices. But what we have to compare is with the best of scientific practices. That is scientific farming, that is as per package of practices recommendations of the university for that particular region. But that was not done. They have compared with the farmers' practices. Comparing with farmers' practices, organic farming will be better because oil cakes are permitted. Oil cakes show it's a concentrated form of nutrients. It is very costly, but it's like that will give you good yield. But for a farmer, it is not possible. But in organic farming experiments, that is possible. But what about the long-term fertilizer experiments that were started in Rothamsted from 1845 onwards? For the past 170 years it is happening, and also Morrow plot experiments in universities of Illinois from 1876 onwards, and permanent manurial trials at Coimbatore, and again All India network research project on these things. It shows that integrated management of the soil with the organic manures as well as fertilizers is giving the maximum yield for consecutively for more than 40 or 50 years. Those projects are still running on, which started in 1970 is still running on. So that shows that integrated management is the best with 100% fertilizer application as well as organic matter application. And it shows that even if it is organic matter alone and incorporating crop residues, it is giving good result for so many years, but thereafter the yields are decreasing because the micronutrients as well as some of the macronutrients, secondary nutrients are reduced, like calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, as well as boron, etc. When those micronutrients were given, that was also producing very good result compared to organic alone. So that is far more better result compared to this one. And still it is continuing. You can get it from the net. Books are written, and so lot of research papers. And what I said previously was a meta-systematic study. That is a review of the reviews published in Nature, not about small anecdotal experiments. It was a review of the reviews that is highest in the rung of the ladder. And also you see about the Sikkim organic. Sikkim organic experiment is showing 60% reduction in grain production, 60%. Though Sikkim is very much organic, they are getting the food from other states. Nearby West Bengal, Bihar and other states, they are getting the food. But they are organic. See, and community managed organic farming in Andhra Pradesh, it has transformed into organic for the past 3 years. And if you look at the data, there was 29% increase in fertilizer consumption. And what sort of organic it is? When it is consuming fertilizers, and then how can it be, we can say that it is organic? It is not organic. Fertilizer are consumed. And if you look at Punjab and Sikkim, you can see the productivity difference, lot of difference in productivity. Rice in Punjab, 4,000 kilograms, 4 tons, and Sikkim 1.8. Wheat, 5.7 in Punjab, 1 ton in Sikkim, and overall 60% reduction for the past 15 years after turning it into organic. So that is not a good model for the country. That is really not a good model for the country. Thank you.
So Sikkim, the productivity is actually going up. Production of food grains has come down because the area of food grain production has reduced. And Sikkim imports food from other places because tourist footfall is 3 times the population of Sikkim. I think we've got to get our data right. In terms of organic farming and why we need it, I want to make a point that agriculture today is not about food security. It's about dealing with climate change. If there's any paradigm that can combine mitigation with adaptation, it's the organic farming paradigm. You can't have multiple different solutions saying that for mitigation, I'll bring in my GM seeds, for adaptation, I'll do something else. When you have a holistic answer for multiple problems, including nutrition security, and if we've not connected the dots yet, between what's happening to soil health, micronutrients in soil, depletion from the chemical agriculture paradigm, and what happens to plant health, as well as plant nutrition, and then what happens to human nutrition, I think we are being unscientific. And here is organic farming, which connects the dots. Soil health, plant nutrition, human nutrition, and planetary health, like I said, with climate change. And for folks like me, who work on farm livelihoods, cost of cultivation increasing is a deep concern. Pesticides and pesticides making farmers suicidal, especially organophosphate pesticides, which are neurotoxic, which can increase suicidal tendencies, especially in cotton belts of India, where you find the highest suicides. One is worried about farm livelihoods, and we do want better net returns for our farmers, and we want better money spent by those of us who can pay for better quality food. And we do want organic food to be subsidized for the poorest. Nobody is advocating a premium niche market for organic produce. So I think organic has solutions for multiple problems that we are contending with. And to be talking about productivity, when the problem, as far as farmers are concerned, is a problem of surplus. You produce more and you perish in the market. That's what farmers are facing. We need solutions that focus on the real kind of food security paradigm that we need. We need solutions for climate change. We need solutions that will also increase productivity, and organic does have those solutions. Please don't think that organic is do-nothing farming, not even of the Fukuoka kind. You will reach there if you first adopt organic farming of the right kind. Today the microclimate is so deteriorated that you can't begin with the Fukuoka kind of do-nothing farming. And if you understand that organic requires intensive efforts, including in terms of capacity building and extension by the government. Remember, your green revolution didn't happen overnight. Remember, green revolution wouldn't have happened if a whole set of paraphernalia and institutional architecture was not set up around it. Organic farming today is swimming against the tide. You need similar kind of support for organic farming. And to me, like I said, this is inevitable. I think this discussion actually doesn't matter. The ones who are standing for conventional farming will fade away, whether they like it or not. Organic will come in. We only have to talk about how to do it. Thank you.
So we stand duly corrected on our terms. So we're going to use the word modern scientific agriculture and agroecological farming. Postmodern agroecological farming. That's the two terms that. So we are going to have the left side of the room on modern scientific farming, the first 4 rows. I'm going to encourage everyone sitting in the middle to try and take sides so that we have a little more richness in discussion. You guys don't get to come here to the cafe, register and then just sit there, because that's what everybody else is doing. So everybody in the middle at least needs to participate on the left or the right. And then this side is the postmodern agroecological farming. So we have 15 minutes, it's 4:30 exactly. We have till 4:45. And then you have exactly 2 minutes to kind of explain what reasons you think were really compelling about these two positions. Okay? And then Pranuti will similarly ring a bell after 10 minutes, and then a short one after 10 minutes, a long one after 15 minutes. Oh, wait, first you want to play the music and they're going to move. Yeah. Okay. So, please take a stand. on this side. These guys seem ready. Okay, so now we bring people from the floor. We are going to start with the organic side because they seem to have stopped arguing at least. Yeah, you can come up here and speak if you want, but you have 2 minutes. Those guys are still. Hey, are we guys ready? Yeah.
Come on, same amount of time. What is this? Huh. Okay. Cool. We have a lot of points. So, there's still discussion. Huh. Okay, cool. Everyone breathe. You've all been like wanting to get all your points across, so just we'll breathe for a bit. Cool. Veena, if you just tell me when I'll start. Oh, go. Okay. Cool. So to start off with, the reframing of the question, the categories, it's agroecology. Right, so that means we're thinking about diverse farm systems. You're talking about a very different. System than monocropped conventional systems. That diversity also leads to resilience because the farmer is not dependent upon the success or failure of a single crop that can be attacked by a single pest or a single pathogen. Then that also comes to the issue of knowledge. So when we say that one kind of farming is scientific and the other is not, we must ask the question of what is scientific and whose science are we talking about? Why are institutions granted more legitimacy than farmers? Why are farmers not scientists? This is not to say that like institutional science is wrong, but institutional science is founded on a history of colonialism that has been built upon eradicating indigenous knowledges and local diversity. Which comes to local diversity, and one good point that was brought about is that food security at the local scale that is enabled by other states having to overproduce grains doesn't really lead to food security. Now we're dependent on a couple of states instead of being dependent on other nations. Instead, what we should be looking for is local level food sovereignty that includes local biodiversity in the work. That can be established by moving the question from production to distribution. We have a very inefficient distribution with a lot of food rotting in go-downs at farms in different situations. Finally comes to a final set of points is around chemicals and pollution. We should follow the precautionary principle when testing chemicals. They shouldn't be innocent until proven guilty. They should be guilty until proven otherwise. And yeah, and phosphorus will run out.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. So first of all, I want to say, there are stories we all believe, right? Or we all like to do the stories, believe the stories. What is the peculiarity of a story? Either it is we were getting a happy things or good things, we will easy to catch hold and believe. And second kind of stories or something what we believe is something which is we are fearing about. Or if someone is giving a good thing, we will easily believe, or someone is spreading you fear mongering, then also it is easily to believe. So from an organic farming perspective, what I observed is that it is giving a fear mongering to the all society. Okay. The reason why is that here also during that debate, we observed that food security is not a concern, just like that words I observed. See, India have right now surplus of food, which is kept bundled, piled up in our godowns, right? So that is getting preserved with the preservatives, pesticides, which have a shelf life of around 3 to 4 years. What will happen in India if 1 year there is no food production due to flood or some other issue or war or something like that? If there is organic farming is there, can they do this food shelf life for 3 to 4 years without any pesticides or without any preservatives? The ultimate result will be, if something like that incident happened, India will die with hunger. So food security is one of the major and best thing which we need to achieve. That can be achieved only through scientific methods and modern farming. And second thing here, talk about plant health and everything. Okay, plant doesn't know what it is consumes. If it is consuming in a molecular level, she said there is no chemistry, there is only biology. But molecular level, it is chemistry. Only molecular level, a plant will absorb things. If you given in an organic method or a chemical method, plant doesn't know. It will split into the molecular form and it will absorb it. Okay, so plant, okay, yeah, sorry. So what I want to say that plant doesn't know what it is giving, what it is needs, it will absorb. If there is a shortage in any one of the micro ingredients like magnesium or whatever it is, plant will produce less yields only. Okay, in any method it is same. So yeah, I will wind up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So those were actually I heard very, very spirited discussions on both sides. I'm going to give the two panelists a chance to speak now for 2.5 minutes. So there won't be a warning bell this time. 2.5 minutes. Yeah.
So why I say that organic farming is negation of science? Because certain things are permitted, certain things are not permitted. Urea is not permitted, but urine is permitted. That is one thing. And then pheromones are permitted. Pheromones, you know, they are chemicals, and when pheromones are manufactured, carcinogenic chemicals are there. And pheromones are permitted. But plant hormones are not permitted. Plant hormones are hormones in plants which you eat, but plant hormones are permitted. And then nicotine is permitted. And nicotine, the LD50 value of nicotine is lesser, it is more toxic than neonicotinoids, which are a group of poisons which are used for pest management, which is less toxic. But neonicotinoids are not permitted. Pyrethrins are permitted. That is natural. It's taken from a flower. But pyrethroids, which we use in our bedroom every night for warding of mosquitoes, you can use it for entire life in your bedroom. But that is not permitted in the farmland. Pyrethroids are not permitted. And there are many such things, genetically modified organisms and crops, that is going to come in a big way, and that will give us lot of prosperity. And especially with the CRISPR-Cas9 technology, we can take it very, very clearly and without any adverse effect, but that is not permitted. Golden rice, which will bring about lot of prosperity, which will prevent blindness in the country, but that is not permitted. And many such things which show that it is science, which is clear science, that is not allowed in organic farming. It is going back. It is going. Will we see any going back in treatments, in modern healthcare? No going back. In transport, no going back. In other sectors, no going back. But going back in the field of farming, going back to centuries back, organic farming. And all the things which they are using in organic farming is a product of modern science. But Again, some are not permitted, some are not permitted. Chemical fertilizers, especially foliar application, is highly effective. Foliar application of fertilizers, but that is not permitted. That will bring about, with less quantity, more production will be possible, but that is not permitted. And many such absurdities, nonsensical things are there in organic farming, and still they say that it is science. It is not science, it is going back from science.
All right, thank you so much.
To me, organic farming is not to be read from legal standards that have been laid down in a certification regime meant for export markets. Organic farming is about certain scientific principles at work. It's about soil biology. It's about biodiversity above ground. It is about making complex ecosystems work for the farmers and for the communities. So let's not get into a discussion on which product, which practice and so on. That shows a very small understanding about organic farming, whereas agroecology is not even about science and practices of farming. It is also about community institutions. Those of you who are engaging with the FAO discourse or the global discourse on agroecology will understand that it is not about science. Please understand that none of these things, when you talk about farming, communities and so on, is about S&T. It's about society, it's about communities, it's about the way they organize themselves, it's about they empowering themselves. So agroecology is a lot more than being critical about the organic farming certification standards. You and I will actually join hands in criticizing it. I am with you on several things when it comes to very narrow understanding of agroecology. I have just 2 points to make. I want to flash these 2 books. This is a compilation, it's a high school project, if you like, just a bibliography from NARS. And this is the CSE compilation of the All India Network project, where you actually had a wrong interpretation of what that network project experimental design is all about. So these 2 are worth reading. They are available on the net. I want to say that scientific evidence itself is a function of generating that evidence. If nobody has invested on, where do agricultural universities spend all their resources from? It's from sponsored research from chemical companies and so on, and we know what evidence is getting generated there. And scientists sitting in this room know this more than I do. It is a function of research investments, funding and so on. So don't come back and talk about scientific evidence all the time. Look at the practice, look at the practitioners and what they have to say. To me, that's the strongest endorsement of organic farming. Not about me endorsing it, not about any scientist endorsing it. What farmers derive out of practice of organic farming is what should drive the change. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Excellent closing arguments from both sides. What we're going to do now is I'm going to read out a few statements that emerged from the statements today. One thing that surprised me is that the role of corporations didn't come in till the very, very end, and corporate, just in the final closing argument. So that sounded, I was expecting it to come right in the beginning. No, when you came, I was expecting it to start in the beginning, and then it came only towards the end. But you ended with that. So I'm going to end. I'm going to say 3 statements, and what we're going to do is to ask all of the cafe participants to kind of then align themselves. And this time we are not going to allow a neutral. It's going to be strongly disagree, slightly agree, and strongly agree. So so you have to pick one side or the other for each of those statements. So the first one was the argument that was made, which I thought the strongest source of disagreement between the 2 panelists was on the role of the health effects of pesticide residue. and whether the maximum residual limit is something which is merely something which is to exclude to act as a barrier to export markets, or it actually has genuine, very serious health, or do pesticides have very genuine health impacts? And I heard fairly diverse opinions on that issue, that basically if you're meeting the maximum residual limit, you're well within safe boundaries, versus no, there are really serious problems with the classes of chemical fertilizers we have. So I'm going to restate that, chemical pesticides, sorry. So chemical pesticides, if you stay with, as long as you stay within the maximum residue limit, right? MRL is maximum residue limit. What is the MRL? Maximum residue limit. So as long as you stay within the maximum residue limit, there is no issue with using pesticides, and it's perfectly safe to use pesticide consumed food. So I'm going to ask people to actually start from strongly disagree. You guys strongly disagree that basically, or you have to now move if you... You're making me move. Okay, just raise hands. Great. Perfect. Actually, that's much better. So how many people strongly disagree? Actually, everybody can participate. There doesn't have to be the... Okay. The statement is that as long as you consume food which is within the maximum residue limit, but it's food which was grown using pesticides, it is completely safe for consumption and should be of no concern whatsoever. This is disagree. Disagree, okay. Okay, what about slightly disagree? Nobody slightly disagrees, okay. Couple of people, okay. Slightly agree that it's perfectly safe, okay. And strongly agree. Okay, so you can see, oh, there you are. That was your statement. Okay, so,
What is there in the...
And then how many people didn't raise their hands? No, they're not raising their hands in response to that also. Okay. Okay, the second, statement number two is on whether food security is a central issue. So I'm going to state it as, we need modern scientific agriculture if we have to feed a population of 1.3 billion people. So without modern scientific agriculture, it is impossible to feed a population of 1.3 billion people. Strongly disagree. Disagree that you need modern scientific agriculture for this. Okay, the organic, okay. Slightly disagree. Okay, slightly agree that we need modern scientific agriculture. Okay, and strongly agree. So I'm not seeing that we've moved too many people here. People are kind of, ossified with where they stand. So what we're going to then do is we're going to put out something, but we need to get somebody like a Dr. Bawa then to kind of say where the state of the science is and what it's going to take to get people moving on these issues. Final statement is the statement on the role of biodiversity and biodiverse farming, that agriculture is not about food security at all, but it's about creating local communities and local food sovereign communities. And it is necessary to have agroecological farming in order to strengthen our rural communities once again. So it's necessary to have agroecological farming, what's called postmodern agroecological farming, if we are ever going to have strong rural communities again. Strongly disagree. People are confused. Let me state the statement again. English formulation is necessary. Okay. So if we want to have thriving rural communities, the only way we are going to get there is essentially if we go the agroecological route. Otherwise, our rural communities are going to collapse. That's the statement. Strongly disagree. Okay. Okay. Slightly disagree. Okay. Okay. Slightly agree. Okay. Strongly agree. All right. Okay, thank you very much. You've been a very great audience. Thank you so much.